We're sitting down with USA Wrestling Developmental Women's Freestyle Coach Jessica Medina. First off, I just want to congratulate you on the amazing summer that you and our age group teams had. A couple world titles, team titles, several world medals. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a great summer.
Yeah. So we're sitting down today because of Hispanic Heritage Month. And I just kind of want to get some insight from you. So I guess we'll just start with, like, as a Hispanic woman, what does the recognition of a month like this, just in general, mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's something that we don't always take time to recognize. And I think, even for myself, I don't like to highlight or take credit. It's just, a lot of my pride comes every day, doesn't come in a month. So, the more and more we see other ethnic groups celebrating, I think it's important to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And so, in doing so, I think it's the simple things that we already do day in and day out. And it's really cool to have a month dedicated to this group.
Yeah, I'd like to go a little bit into your background. You're from California, obviously a large Hispanic community there. Could you just give us insight on what it's like growing up in a Hispanic community, and maybe just give us a little on what your background is specifically?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in California, SoCal, and, grew up around a pretty diverse community, diverse high school. And so for me, I was really blessed to have, I think, those opportunities. And, I really didn't realize that until I went to college in Southern Kentucky. And I realized how rich my community was, and also realized how much support I had within the Hispanic community and how different it was from the rest of the country. So I think that really helped me ground my roots and who I was, and be able to be confident in that moving forward in my career. Growing up, I think for myself, having my family, having those roots, and getting into wrestling was not a norm, 15, 18 years ago. So, I think it was very different back then. A Hispanic girl joining an all boys team, and predominantly, I would say, white team. That was really different. And so again, just having that support from my family, and also too being in that diverse culture, I didn't really think about what I was doing at the time, but that was a huge thing. So
Yeah, I'd like to move into a little bit more of wrestling and kind of what it looks like now. The Hispanic population is the largest minority within our USA Wrestling membership. And as someone who you didn't experience that when you were wrestling, it wasn't the same for you. So what do you think has contributed to that part of the growth within our sport?
Well, I would definitely say with wrestling, there's a low barriers into the sport, right? It's not super expensive. It's not something, at least on the girls' end, you don't have to commit to wrestling at 6 years old. And I think because that's still the sport developing, I didn't join wrestling until I was 16. And I think that's still true of a lot of successful athletes now. So I think that has a huge part to it. And I think too, for the second and third generation Hispanics, the more and more sanctioning of high school teams and collegiate programs are really helping push forward that higher education. And so now these athletes, these girls who want to wrestle, they can tell their parents, I can wrestle in college. And so I think that's really pushing the landscape of a high school athlete and a collegiate athlete, and in the Hispanic community.
Yeah. Just to kind of expand on that a little more, as a development coach, you've had the opportunity to coach and witness a lot of success, especially from young Hispanic girls. As we spoke earlier, you pointed out half of our cadet team was Hispanic, which is amazing, right? So can you talk about what that's been like? And you kind of talked about it already, how this mobilizes opportunities for them moving forward.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like just the past couple summers, just coaching with our development athletes and seeing the athletes that are making these teams. It's amazing to see the development of the technique and strategy and maturity of the athletes. And when I took a step back at our cadet world championships, And I was looking at our team, I'm like, wow, half of them are Hispanic. And that's not something that, I saw, as well as, I think the sports developing, there wasn't a cadet age group. So I think it really is opening doors for that specific ethnic group. And it's really exciting to see. And I think the more that we have those athletes participating, it's normalized. And, I think sometimes we need to see those, right? We talk a lot about representation in every sport and in ethnicity and gender, whatever that is. And I think it's really cool to see that at our different age groups. And I think the more that we see that, the more that we'll develop the sport in general. And especially just like, as you said, it's such a huge minority within wrestling. So it's really cool to see that develop. And I just think it's going to open more and more doors for that age group, for the senior level athletes, for the success. And, on a side note too, it's been really cool to see the progression in Latin America too, and work with some of those coaches and watch how they're developing. And I think it's just, something about the Latino and Hispanic community. It's like that fight, and I think of, just some of the traits that we have, and they're so in line with wrestling that it's easy to sell that to, a young athlete and say, hey, you can compete, you have somewhere you fit in. So it's really cool to see that development, not just in the U.S., but within our Pan Am countries.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll end with this one, just for maybe a young girl who's watching this interview. Who are some Hispanic women within our sport that they could look up to, some people they could do some research on?
Yeah, so, I found myself asking the same question. I'm like, who is wrestling and who can I most identify with? And when I was growing up, it was Patricia Miranda. And I would say now, it's Jakara Winchester, Maya Nelson, Tatiana Suarez Padilla. We wrestled around the same time, and now she's competing in MMA. So that's really cool to see that transition as well. And I would say, the Blade sisters, Karina and Kennedy. And, we had a few medalists, maybe some peers. Those girls can look up our results and know our history, just from a standpoint from the entire wrestling community. But the more that you know that, the more that you know these girls' backgrounds. So sometimes too, we don't know, we assume, right? Like Hispanic is such a broad term, but do your research. You'll find that we're really mixed, diverse community. And it, even for myself, a lot of people don't know I'm Salvadorian as well. And that's not something I share. So the more that I talk to other people and get to know them, I realize, not only are they decorated athletes and great people and, on the mat, but I also realize they have rich culture and roots. And I think that's what's so awesome about the community. It makes it so diverse and fun.
Perfect. Thank you for your insight. Love it.